Hello, hello. How is everyone on today? I'm sure you have heard about this story, but I would like to bring some light to this story with the U.S. Airman Roger Fortson, a special operations personnel in the U.S. Air Force, was killed by a Florida cop who entered wrong home, directed by a female citizen. But before we get into the story, I want to offer my deepest condolences to the mother, to the siblings, to the sister, to the family, to everyone that has something to do with Special Operations U.S. Airman Robert Fortson. Uh, Looking at this story, and I've listened to uh, Benjamin Trump's press conference with the mother and the siblings and the family members speaking out, and it's kind of hard to not say anything about this story, and we definitely need to bring light to this story. And so I want to say that with the body cam and the 911 call and things like that that have been released, it is very clear. And even from the beginning, when I first read the story and heard about the story, listening to it, it is very clear that the officer went to the wrong apartment and they really didn't know which apartment it was. They just showed up, and then there was a female citizen that directed them. She didn't even know at first. And then she came back and told him, told him 1401. So the apartment is E1401, is where Special Operations U.S. Airman Roger Fortson resided. He was on the phone with his significant other or girlfriend, if you will, doing a FaceTime call. He was in the apartment alone. When I say alone, it wasn't another human that he was in the apartment with. He was in the apartment and his dog was in the apartment, and the dog barked. And most dogs bark when someone knocks at the door, and so he also was licensed to carry. So he had a permit or license to carry his, his gun. And so the officer that responded to the domestic violence situation alleged shot him 6 times, did not make an announcement to drop the gun or anything like that. He also moved away from the keyhole a few times, so he couldn't be seen. And when he did, the door was open, he started shooting. And after the fact is when he wanted to give the command of drop the gun. And also there was a female officer there that did not even try to give assistance or call 911, or give any type of CPR, anything to preserve or save Special Operations U.S. Airman Roger Fortson's life. And so in this story, it says authorities in Florida released shocking police body cam footage Thursday that showed an Okaloosa County Sheriff's deputy shooting and killing an armed Special Operations U.S. Airman in his own apartment before the cop even told him to drop his gun. The unidentified deputy was responding to the Chez Elon Apartments at Fort Walton Beach on May 3rd on a domestic violence call. A woman said she heard arguing from a frequently troubled couple in a nearby apartment. Now, I'm going to stop right there. As I said, nearby apartment could be any nearby apartment. And so, therefore, she didn't even have the right apartment where the domestic violence or arguing or verbal or violent altercation was taking place. She did not have accurate information. And again, he was not in an apartment with another human being. He was in an apartment with his dog. That's the apartment that he was in. And so she has not come out and responded. She hasn't responded to U.S. Airman Roger Fortson's mother. She has not come out and gave a statement that she's sorry that she had the incorrect apartment, because she was the one that directed the officers to that apartment, E1401. And she needs to be held accountable. Now, getting back to the story, Roger Fortson's family said the deputy barged into the wrong apartment and that the 23-year-old had armed himself with his own legal handgun in response to a suspicious knocks at his door. And so If you are a gun owner, you're in your home. That's supposed to be your sanctuary, your safe place that you know, go to when you're done with working, when you're done with being out and about in the town or the community or wherever, and then you get home. That's supposed to be your sanctuary, your safe place. And under the constitutional rights of this U.S. Airman, his rights were violated, and this officer should have called in and said, look, you know, we don't really have the right apartment. We're being told that from a female citizen, she doesn't really know, and we don't know where the disturbance is coming from. That's how it should have been handled. My late second oldest brother was a police detective for the East St. Louis Police Department. Okay, and so he wouldn't have never went into a house or broke into a house and just start shooting. And I know that he wouldn't have done that. No matter what, he would not have done that. Are you going to act in self-defense? Absolutely. But there was no reason for this officer to start shooting without issuing a command. And he did not issue a command. And I do believe that, in my opinion, and maybe you all will agree with me, a lot of times when these investigations take place and black people are not given the swift justice that the families and black people deserve when it comes to something like this, I believe that they're trying to cover it up, and they're trying to come up with a politically correct statement to the media, to the public, so that they can cover up this wrongful killing. And they've done it in the past so many times that there is a lack of trust in how they handle these investigations. But I want you to know that the family is not giving up. The mother is not sitting down like a victim and saying, woe is me, we're just going to go along with this. No, we cannot continue to go along with wrongful killings of police officers doing what they do, and then they are protected under the blue. They are protected under, their uniform to say that what would you have done and someone had a gun in their hand? Well, you chose that profession. You chose to be an officer. You went through the academy. So guess what? You should have did your job correctly, and you should have gave a command to drop the gun. Now, my understanding is that U.S. Airman Roger Fortson told him, that is over there. And he told him more than once, and he's still yelling, drop the gun, after he's already shot this young man 6 times. And the female officer was there, didn't bother to give him any type of, compassion to call 911 or try to help him in preserving his life. Because a lot of times they do not think that black people's lives matter, and we matter. We are valued. We matter, and they don't want to give us the same justice that we deserve. And when people say that we play the race card, no, the system plays the race card. Black citizens have to respond to the race card that the system is constantly playing against black people. Yes, I said it. The system plays the race card, and black citizens respond to it. And we have a right to respond under our constitutional rights, to respond to the injustice that continually is given against us. The injustice that continually goes against us, we have a right to respond to it. And no, we will not sit down. No, we will not shut up. No, we will not sit back and play the victim and say, oh, well. It's not, oh, well. It's not, woe is me. And again, I want to offer, if I didn't, my sincere condolences to this family, because they are going through it. And you know what? They do have a GoFundMe that's put up, the GoFundMe for you to be able to donate to it if you choose to do so, and you want to help this family in whichever way that you can to get through this, because it's a trying time. But getting back to this, when Fortson, an active duty senior airman, now he's a senior airman with the U.S. Air Force, opened up, the deputy immediately raised his pistol. So when Special Operations U.S. Airman Roger Fortson opened up his door, he automatically raised his pistol and let off 6 shots, striking Fortson and causing him to fall to the ground. Now, the drop the gun, the deputy yelled after he opened fire, as I'm stating to you, according to the body footage. It's over there. The mortally wounded Fortson replied, I don't have it. So at that point, he was still able to speak. He was still able to talk. And at this point, the officer called for backup just as the clip released by the Okaloosa County Sheriff fades to black. And so with that being said, the officer that was with him did not bother to try to get him help, because in their biased stereotype mind, they assumed probably that he deserved it because he had a gun in his hand, but he was in the sanctimonious of his home, which he had a right to be. And when you get a suspicious knock at your door, and it was a suspicious knock, and then you look out your peephole and nobody's standing there because the officer kept moving to the side after he knocked, he did not identify himself to say that, the Florida Sheriff Department, we received a call that there is a domestic violence disturbance, open up the door. None of that was done. From my understanding of reading and listening, none of that was done. And they're going to try to cover up what this officer did. It is a wrongful shooting. He violated Special Operations U.S. Airman Roger Fortson's amendments, and he needs to be held accountable. And I'm bringing light to this female citizen. She needs to be held accountable as well, because she directed them to the wrong department of E1401. She didn't say E. She said 1401. So it turns out there is an E as in Edward or E as in Echo in front of 1401. And so, Edward, if your name is Edward, I'm not trying to offend you in any way. So I'll say, stand corrected and say Echo, as in E, Echo, right? So she directed them to the wrong apartment. She directed that officer to the wrong apartment. And so she needs to be held accountable as well, because she lied, because she didn't even know which apartment it was. So she lied. And she needs to be held accountable for lying, because she's part of the demise of what the officer did to Fortson. And the thing is that, yes, this officer violated policy. No, he didn't follow protocol and do his job correctly, but he also was directed to the wrong apartment. So all I's have to be dotted, all T's have to be crossed, because she's just as responsible and guilty of what happened to this Special Operations U.S. Airman Roger Fortson. And he was a senior airman on top of it. And listening to what the mother is saying, what type of person he was, what the family is saying. And so when people say the system, that black people always play the race card, no, we have to respond to the race card that's being played against our race. That's what needs to happen. And so famed civil rights attorney Ben Crump said at a Thursday press conference that Fortson, who later died from his wounds, didn't know it was sheriff's deputies outside. He didn't even know. He did not know it was sheriff deputies outside. And a woman whom they identified as his girlfriend, he was on the phone FaceTiming. And there was nobody else in the home with him as another human being. It was his dog. And so where is the domestic violence at? They haven't been able to talk about that, right? The police department there in Florida, Okaloosa, right? Where is the domestic violence situation at? Because they didn't even bother to say, well, let's go check the apartment to see if it's a woman in here being abused or beaten. They didn't go check that because they had the wrong apartment. Because if you think about it, after he was shot, do you think the other officer went through the apartment and said, where's the woman at that he's supposed to be beating on, that he's supposed to be, abusing? Because they had the wrong apartment. Common sense tells us we don't have to have a long investigation when you already know the truth. You have the information, you have the video cam, that police department in Okaloosa, they already know the truth. They know the truth. So it doesn't take a long, drawn-out investigation. And they could have came out and spoke and already said, well, this is what is going on. But see, they're going to take their time to do it because a lot of times they're trying to think of a lie. They're trying to think of a lie. But you know what? This family is not going to go away. And like they said with this t-shirt they're wearing, the red t-shirts, we're all we got. And when it comes to our race, we're all we got. And we got to start looking at it and come together, because I see so many black people battling with each other. Black people on Facebook, social media, battling with each other, going back and forth over simple things that are nonsense. And then we have black people being killed. And guess what? And guess what? Nothing really is being done about it, because not enough people is paying attention to things that matter. They're paying attention to foolishness. Paying attention to foolishness. Back and forth silliness. And most of the people that's doing all this silliness and foolishness, they are just as guilty as the other person they're pointing the finger at. If you participate in foolishness, how can you point the finger at somebody else? And I'm keeping it real, you all. How can you point the finger at somebody else when you are participating in foolishness yourself? When you point the finger at others, it's 3 or more pointing back at you. All the foolishness that's going on. They're just jealous of me. They're like me. All this nonsense. And we got people, our own, being murdered, gunned down at the hands of cops and evil people that's out here doing it. And so we can't keep pointing the finger at others. We need to turn it in. And for some reason, they had this stereotype biased attitude that they thought he was a bad guy. But he really was a good guy. U.S. Airman Roger Fortson. This family is heartbroken. He was a great guy. He was an exceptional guy. They took a patriot from us, someone that's serving his country. They didn't care about that. They didn't care about that. If you start shooting when someone opens their door, then you don't care about nobody else's life. A selfish act. And they're going to try to protect that officer. But by God, the God I serve, he ain't going to be able to be protected. And I would like you all to share this video. And that female citizen that lied, you need to be held accountable. You definitely need to be held accountable. And see, forgiveness doesn't mean there's no consequences. Forgiveness doesn't mean that someone's hating. Forgiveness means for the family and for the people that's been hurt to move forward. But she needs to be held accountable. See, Fortson's bereaved mom, Shantae Miki, Miss Fortson, they had a framed picture of their late son in his dress uniform as they went up for the media. And she right away erupted in tears because it was hard to tell. It was hard to hear that story without shedding tears. Even his siblings and family members were shedding tears, the little kids. He was a special missions aviator based at the Special Operations Wing at Herbert Field in the Florida Panhandle. And she says, my baby was shot up, she said. And you know, the military, they have reached out to her. They have been supportive. They've had nothing but good things to say about him. And for them to think that they can cover this up, and for that chief to lie to this mother's face, shedding tears and lying, they trying to cover it up. But they're not going to be able to cover this up because the truth is already out there. It's out there. And the girlfriend was on a FaceTime. So she told U.S. Airman Roger Fortson, mom, about witnessing Fortson being shot. And the mother drove to Fort Walton Beach only to find out it was too late. And she said, you guys have killed my baby. She told the cops at the hospital. Just take me to my baby, please. I just want to see my child. They had taken her gift. And see, let me say this. They at the hospital, right? But they knew they were wrong. Those cops, the officers. And they knew her heart was bleeding. And they wanted to talk to her at that time. They told her the investigation was ongoing. Yeah, it is. It should be. Because that female citizen needs to be charged as well. This is just too much, you all. And they came out and had the nerve to say that the deputy acted in self-defense. That's what they first came out and said, you know that. And that they were at the right apartment. They weren't at the right apartment. They were not at the right apartment. Because if they were at the right apartment, where is the woman at that he was supposed to be beating on and yelling at? And they were constantly arguing back and forth and beefing. Where is that woman? There was nobody else in that apartment except for his dog. And he told them he couldn't breathe. As he died, he told them he couldn't breathe. And that deputy that killed him, yeah, I'm going to say killed. He's on administrative leave pending an investigation. And they haven't identified the officer either involved in the encounter. This is an unjustifiable killing. He was just in his apartment minding his own business in the sanctimonious of his apartment. And they could have made sure they had the right apartment. Like I said, he could have called in the officer and said, well, we don't know which apartment it is. And the young lady, the female citizen that's out here telling us she doesn't even know because she didn't even know. And then came back saying it was 1401. So why did she give them a black man's apartment? She probably knew who lived there. She may not have knew him personally. And then again, you know, there are some women that like black men. Matter of fact, a lot of them. Yeah, I'm saying it. And when black men ignore them, it becomes a problem for them. Some of them do it. And I'm not being racist either. I'm just telling you what I know. And when they get ignored because they're not the chosen one, because why would she direct the officer, the cop, to 1401 when she didn't even know? But I'm sure she knew it was a black person probably lived there, a black young man. Because why would you just pick 1401? Isn't there a 1402 and a 1403 and a 1400 or 1399, 1398? You all get the gist. So why would you just pick out that apartment? They need to investigate her. What would make you just pick out that apartment number? They had a duty. These officers had a duty to make sure they were at the right apartment before they busted in the door. And any law-abiding citizen who feels they have a right to the Fourth Amendment and the Second Amendment, they should be troubled by this. I'm troubled by this, you all. I'm troubled by this. And I've done a lot of videos on injustice, and I'm troubled by this because they should have made sure. And the first thing that the system want to talk about when it comes to these guns, oh, we have this is our right to carry a gun. As a law-abiding citizen, I have a right to carry. He had a right to carry also, but he shouldn't have been killed, murdered in cold blood over his right while he was in his apartment, minding his own business. Because see, these amendments, they grant us as American citizens the right to be free of illegal searches and seizures and the right to bear arms. So when you say that blacks always play the race card, no, it's the system that plays the race cards, and blacks have a right to respond to it. The system plays the race card, and blacks have a right to respond to it.